Morning, it's Wednesday morning. Today we read from Matthew 12:46 through 50, the end of the chapter. While he was still speaking to the people, behold, his mother and his brothers stood outside asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And stretching his hand toward his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Several things come to mind as we read that. I don't think that Jesus was wanting to really be nasty toward his brother and his mother. I think it's more of he's making the point that my people, my disciples, the people of this community are my family, not necessarily the ones who are related to me biologically. So there are two questions I want to raise. One is most Protestants read that and say, well, yeah, Jesus had brothers. Some read it and say, well, those are children of Joseph from an earlier marriage, because after all, Mary only had one child. Still others read it and say, well, in the Middle East and Africa, brothers often actually means cousins. So those are his kinsfolk, but not necessarily children of the same parents, brothers. And of course, there are the arguments on the other side that Mary never had any children except Jesus, and so that must mean something else. So you can ponder that all you want. I don't have an answer for you. Definitive either way. But what is clear is that Jesus is not a proponent of what's called family values. And I don't know about you, but I heard a lot about that back in the 80s and 90s. Everything was always family values, and we need to be more in touch with our families and blah, 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 blah. Well, I love my family, yes. But this notion that family held a place above anything else in the whole world or the whole Christian world is simply idolatry. The idea that family is more important than, say, discipleship or mission is just wrong. And some of you will want to fight me on that, and bring it on, let's do it. But I don't think that the teaching that came out of the 80s evangelical movement about family is really the answer or the teaching. It's just at the point where society began to understand and accept a variety of different kinds of families that suddenly the right-wing conservative evangelical world began to tout, mom, dad, and 2.2 children as the ideal. And that might have been an ideal from, some imaginary look back at the 50s, but it's not the ideal in the scripture, and it's not even put forward by the scripture as necessarily a good thing. And here Jesus says, my family are the ones here in the room who follow my teachings. Well, he was a special case, of course, but still, we can think about that. Many times I've heard the church referred to as a family, and I think in some ways that's a good metaphor, and I think we ought to think about that sometimes. So what does it mean then for Jesus to say, these are my brothers and sisters and my mother? It means that the ones who follow him are the ones who have that relationship with him, like a sister or a brother. And that's what we're after here, is following Jesus in that intimate, close, related way, no matter what else the world throws at us. So let's try that, and let's do that. And tomorrow we'll start the next chapter where there's some parables. So we'll see you then.